Set on a parallel Earth in a retro-futuristic 1960s, combining Mad Men style with Jetsons like sci-fi tech, inspired visually by Jack Kirby's comics and 2001: A Space Odyssey, and designed around three themed
69.
lab rooms: red, yellow, and blue. These are for research, thinking, and monitoring. And we've also heard it's supposed to capture like the space age excitement from our own timeline. Cast and characters. So this is where all the red flags are coming out with the gender identity politics. Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic, a brilliant scientist, the emotional anchor of the team. And then the main one seems to be Sue Storm here, the Invisible Woman. From her earliest appearance in Fantastic Four #1 in 1961, Sue was often relegated to a passive role, dubbed Invisible Girl. Her powers limited and her character largely defined by her relationships with the men around her. But Kirby and director Matt Shakman set out to redefine Sue, honoring her roots while updating her for today's audience. That's another way of saying updated for the modern audience. Right. If you played an exact 60s Sue today, everyone would think she was a bit of a doormat, Kirby acknowledges. Instead, First Steps gives Sue agency, gravitas, and inner conflict, showcasing her as a woman of profound emotional intelligence and personal power. Shakman calls her the most emotionally intelligent person on the planet, and it's through that lens that Sue becomes both a political and a personal leader.
Pause there for a sec. We'll get to the Johnny Storm comments. I want to point out a couple things. I talked with someone who's seen the movie. I know someone who is at Marvel who has seen the movie and says Sue Storm is portrayed as a badass in the kind of way that Sigourney Weaver as Ripley is a badass. So it's done without necessarily diminishing the male characters. And I will say, as a longtime Fantastic Four reader, she was, I mean, there are issues of FF with Sue Storm in her costume, wearing an apron, bringing out like a meal, right? Like it's a little, yes, you want to update it some. I think there's no reason to feel threatened by this. And I'll point out that two quick last things, we get back to it and go to everyone for comments, that the movie is more a science fiction movie than it is a superhero movie. It's truly a science fiction adventure. So I'll leave it there. We'll talk more, but yeah, I think, I don't know. As a longtime reader, this could work. We'll see. I think the weak link is Pedro, and that's only because of what Alan and I saw at CinemaCon. You saw it too. I wasn't super impressed by that. So, anyways, and one last thing, and I'll stop. I feel like a lot of these, look at the outlet talking to them. It's Entertainment Weekly, very mainstream, whatnot. These actors and the way these actors are subjected to these questions that they don't pick by these outlets. And I feel like they are baited to talking about gender and sexuality and get all that stuff. They are baited into discussing it. If they're not asked that question, it doesn't come up. So I really think I'm a wait and see, because I want to, in my lifetime, see a good Fantastic Four movie. You know, I've seen enough incarnations where the most accurate is one made by Corman in the 90s, you know, realistically. So I would blame the outlet more than the actors. They're responding to what they're given.
Is this the gayest Fantastic Four movie? Like, we're just waiting for Mark from Variety to ask that question and ruin their whole fucking day.
That'll be asked, and it doesn't help the movie. And it's too late. Like with Snow White, it was too late to clamp down on that language. The cat was, the quotes were all over on video, her Instagram and social media. It was all out there. And then that contributed to killing the movie. I don't think it was the only factor. It was also a really bad movie. But I think these journalists bait these actors who are just parroting things that other people around them have said. The movie may, in fact, have none of this. But now let's get to Johnny Storm, if you would, Badger. Continuing,
This
that was
seems to be the
there we go.
other point of contention is Johnny Storm and his depiction, again, for the modern audience, updated as a self-aware and complex hothead in past portrayals like that of Chris Evans in 2005 or Michael B. Jordan in the 2015 reboot.
Yeah.
Johnny was the cocky, adrenaline junkie showboat, all charm, jokes, and ego. He was often comic relief or the bad boy trying to grow up.
Yep.
Joseph Quinn's Johnny still has that spark, but it's more melancholic and reflective. He was branded as this womanizing devil may care guy, but this is the sexy, but is that sexy these days? I don't think so. This version of Johnny is less callous with other people's feelings.
So it's not Johnny Storm.
Quick point. I want everyone to comment, but this is where I have a big issue. If you take away Johnny's, you can look at being a womanizer as a flaw. He could be accountable for his behavior. Two women he's seeing might suddenly run into each other and figure out that Johnny is not Johnny's not such a good guy. It gives an opportunity for a character to grow and learn. This is when characters are perfect from the get-go and like that, it's not interesting.
No, it's boring.
It's boring. Han Solo is such an interesting character. He's a pirate. He's a smuggler. He only cares about the money. And yet, what does he do at the end of Star Wars? Saves his friend Luke. We did not expect that behavior. So they're taking away a character arc or an opportunity for a character to grow and do something good, rather making them like all perfect in the beginning is boring.
Yeah, that's the Rey Skywalker effect.
Yes. What do you guys think? Everybody.
First of all, I want to say Vanessa Kirby is hot.
Well,
I gotta get that out the way. Anyway, look, I took what she said with a grain of salt. I wasn't so much put off by her as I was by Joseph Quinn. I think for me, look, man, if you're going to play the part, play the part. And I know he has no say in it, really. It's about the writers. It's not about him. He didn't write the script. But I look, the film may be fine. The film may be good. I just don't like the fact that what they're putting out there is something that's going to push people off from seeing this movie, right? See, the thing is, it's like the movie could be great, but if there's enough bad press about it, no one's going to go watch it. So that's the thing that's and that Johnny Storm thing really put me off. Like I've been defending this movie. I've been like, just saying that, hey, you know what, guys, I actually think it's going to be good. But hearing that come from him, like, it kind of put me off because I'm like, I love Johnny Storm and I love the character that Johnny Storm is. And we need that kind of character to balance out this group of four right here, right? We have the responsible people who are Reed and Vanessa. We already have a melancholy guy with the Thing. We have a guy who's already self-reflective and depressed because he's made of rock, right? So we need that fun, crazy hothead guy who likes to chase chicks, have a good time. We need that guy in the four.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is we're not getting that guy.
Well, wait a second. I have to. In how many Marvel movies has the dating lives of our characters been at the forefront?
I'm not saying it has to be a dating
other
thing,
than none of them. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that these complaints. I remember when Living Daylights came out in 1987. There was a lot made of the fact that Bond was only going to have one woman that he dealt with in the movie. And they were talking about it was a response to AIDS. Mm-hmm. They wanted to make the Bond character more responsible. And it was in the press. It was a big deal. When you see The Living Daylights, you never once think to yourself, boy, Bond just doesn't have enough chicks in this movie. Because the plot, once it begins, moves at a breakneck pace. It carries you down the road. And you never stop and think about it. I think this is an example of, in a Fantastic Four film, I don't think there's any time to delve into Johnny Storm's. He's going to be already from the clips that you see, the clip that they've released when he's talking, that brief clip that there's a new trailer about to drop and you saw him on a couch talking to Sue. I don't know if you guys have seen that clip.
Was that the late for dinner thing?
Yeah, the late for dinner thing. I'm like, I can't imagine, like, they're adding these questions I think are irrelevant to the film. I really
There's
do.
not enough time for him to be his character, but there's enough time for him to be melancholic.
He's of course he's going to be his character, but it's like he's not going to. They're not going to make it he's still going to be the brash Johnny Storm he's always been. It's just that somebody made the comment that in you have how many years of history of reading comic books where the character can chase after girls, but in the context of look, Tony Stark was already a horn dog in the first 2 Avengers movies. And I don't think they shy away from that, but I don't think there's any time to even deal with these issues when they're talking about these are talking points that people are now bringing up. I will bet you when you see this movie, you never once think to yourself, Johnny Storm needed to be more of a womanizer in this movie.
No, and Rob, I agree with that. I'm not saying he needs to be a man whore. What I'm saying is by the comments that Joseph Quinn made, right? Just from the sound of it, it sounds like they're neutering him, right? And they're trying to make
me it's worse. It sounds like he despises his character. And
felt like that's how it comes off. Like, we're not gonna
I agree with you guys. I mean, but I just think in the context, these have now become at the forefront of all talking points of any genre. I mean, the fact it takes place in an alternate 60s universe, I can understand they're probably not showing Sue Storm wearing an apron and things like that. And they're dealing with, I would imagine that she being part of the Fantastic Four, the fact that even in the 60s, women's places were still in the home. The American middle class was still a big deal. And now she's at the forefront of society, showing people a different way. Like they could be talking about that. I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen the movie. I just don't think, I think there's going to be non-issues when the film comes out. And I don't even know why they're part of the talking points in these interviews.
And I totally agree.
It's the interviewers. They provoke with these types.
That's what I think is going on here. And then the actors have to answer the question.
Yeah, because I bet you Vanessa Kirby couldn't answer the question honestly, and that she had to give the politically correct answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not only that, you also have to realize that some of the marketing departments are trying to say, well, what are the people saying on social media? And then they collate all those together and they say, all right, we're going to have questions that address these topics of interest because that's going to work for the algorithm. So people get awareness of this film on that pocket of an audience that has no money that maybe will show up. And they're just reaching out for that.
She should have said, yeah, no, Sue Storm's a trad wife. What are you going to make of it? And
right.
challenge,
That would have been awesome.
give a little pushback. I mean,
answer actually.
I would love it.
I'm told from the person I know who saw the film that she is a standout. But also, you're right, Rob. They could very well just be pandering to the journalists that are interviewing them, right?
I just don't think in any superhero movie have we seen. Look, I liked it when Tony Stark took what's-her-face, Leslie Bibb home and had his way with her. I'm like, she's hot. Why not? He's Tony Stark. He's rich. That was a brief moment. And it became humorous when Pepper Potts basically comes in and gets her out of bed and gets Tony to work. I mean, that fit with his persona, but it was never after that. Nobody ever cared about Tony Stark's sex.
But Robert, if there was a Batman movie and they said he's not going to have sex with women, wouldn't you be a little,
Well, when was have you seen other than the scene when Christian Bale was in the bathtub with 2 ladies at that restaurant? When in the Christopher Nolan movies was Christian Bale seen as being a womanizer?
But that
he was doing. He only did that one time, and it was fake. He did this for show.
In The Dark Knight on the boat, but that was a setup.
Yeah. And in Batman vs Superman, it wakes up with him with the chicken bed. Sorry, Steph. Go ahead.
Oh no, that's okay. That whole scene with Pepper kicking out, the girl. That whole scene is meant to imply that he's done this before. This is such a normal thing for him that there's like a routine that Pepper has in kicking out these women. Yeah. So even though like we only see it one time, we still know that that's a part of Tony Stark's like personality. So it's implied that like it's a huge deal when him and Pepper start dating because he's such a playboy.
Yep.
So like if they don't, I'm not saying that like if they don't do that with Johnny, that's criminal, but it should be something like that. That's implied that, he does go out on dates with a lot of women. They don't have to make it a focal point of his character, but it should still be an inherent part of his character. It doesn't have to be like this huge thing, but that is a part of his character and they should still keep it, not be like, oh, we're going to get rid of that. That's a part of toxic masculinity. We can't show that anymore, even though like
the phrase is it informs the character. You don't have to make Johnny a womanizer throughout the entire film. But you give little instances because it lets you in on what the character is like.
Well, there might not be an instance where he's in the story where he's, in a position to pick up a chick. They just didn't include it. That doesn't mean it's not there.
I hope that he's a pussy hound. I'm going to be honest.
Robert, there's always
Because
a time to pick up a chick. You know that. Come on.
it's an opportunity for him to have an arc. It's also an opportunity for humor. It fits his character and
You come across as human.
Even his relationship with Ben is also, they're like brothers that are fighting, constantly playing jokes on each other, insulting each other. But when it comes to it, they protect and support each other. I love that relationship of Johnny and Ben is really crucial. Like,
I agree. And that could all be there and it could be great. No one's going to think twice about anything else.
Can we even just have people be assholes as characters so they have somewhere to go? You can't start with perfect and then being perfect again. That's Ray.
Mhm.
That's
Chris.
why Ray was so bland. Even though I like Daisy Ridley as that character, they were the whole sequel trilogy is
Well, yeah. Well, keep it
over
with Star
that.
Wars. When we introduce to Luke, he's a whiny little boy who wants to go spend time with his friends, and then at the end of it, he becomes a hero, destroying the Death Star.
right.
That's
Yeah,
an
and the
arc.
fear is that this is what Sue Storm's going to be. She's going to be the girl boss. She won't have an arc. She won't have any weaknesses. She'll be the leader that is unbreakable and unshakable.
Also,
Johnny's
from what I
insecurities is
gather
listed
from
here.
what I gathered from the trailer that we saw, also, like, in this universe, the Fantastic Four are like celebrities, right? So
Yeah.
why wouldn't Johnny be like using that celebrity as a way to, pick up chicks? And there could be just maybe one scene where he's enjoying his celebrity, right? Where he's walking into a bar or club with two women around his arm,
Yeah.
like that,
Yeah.
that one little thing gives you an idea of who Johnny is.
Yeah, and
But
then
no,
you
we
contrast
could-
that with Ben Grimm, who can't get another chick.
Yeah,
Who can't
I-
get a chick.
I think we
Yeah.
could see something like that.
I mean, the
Like-
only thing that you could do that's a little bit authentic would be if Johnny feels like he's not ever going to have a relationship like Reed and Sue and like Ben and Felicia.
Exactly.
Can I
and
read
that's
what it
the
says
thing.
here
That's
about
what
themes
makes it
and
so
tone?
great. What is that?
Explores emotional depth, Sue's motherhood, Johnny's insecurities. So we have time to explore his insecurities, Reed's idealism, and Ben's identity.
Right. What
Well,
you've done
Johnny
is
is
you
an
just
insecure
created.
kid. I
You
mean,
just
that's why he
described a
dates and-
4-person dynamic on a team. That everyone has their different little motivations, and they all work and interplay and conflict with each other. And that's
I
what the
can't wait
Fantastic
to
Four
see
is supposed
Johnny
be.
Storm talk about his feelings. Like,
In a hallway,
Yay.
hopefully.
He did that in the 90s cartoon a lot, actually.
Script. Look, character arcs. How do you create an interesting character arc when you've got to be so PC in these movies? And are they pandering to a Gen Z audience that kind of looks down on that behavior? I mean, I don't expect Johnny to DM girls on Instagram like Jared Leto, but come on, is there a pushback on introducing? Are there acceptable character flaws and are there acceptable or unacceptable character flaws in film now?
Well, the thing is, the only character flaw that you don't do is you don't make the character so unlikable that you don't want to watch them. You always have to give them a little bit of a charm, but
Yeah.
you have to give them a character flaw so that they have something to overcome by the end of the movie. That's the journey. That's why
Yes.
nobody liked Ray. She had no character flaws. That's why a lot of people didn't like what was going on with Henry Cavill and Superman, because his character flaw was the fact that he'd want to be disassociated with humanity. And did he really, really come back to the end of it at the end of that movie? It was kind of weak and didn't really resonate so well. Action scenes people loved, what have you. But I mean, you need that arc. I mean, I think I would love to see a Fantastic Four actually do well, because it is a cursed franchise when it comes to live action. I mean, it's a miracle that the Fox movie got a sequel when it did, with Jessica Alba and Ian Goff. And then of course the Fan Four Stick one was also a travesty as well. And I think that comes to do with the fact that so many studios, when they got a hold of Fantastic Four, they didn't realize that it's a soap opera and Swiss Family Robinson in space, or science fiction hybrid. I also think that they don't really quite understand the fact that Johnny Storm is a pivotal point of the team, because he can do a lot of physical action stuff that some of the others can't because of his flight. But he's also the guy that falls for very easy reverse psychology tropes from
Because
the
he's
villain.
cocky
causes bigger
and
problems as a
overconfident.
result. Yeah.
That's his character arc. He's cocky and overconfident, not insecure and
Well,
kind.
cocky and
and
overconfident people are doing that because they're insecure. They're putting on a facade. Like that's one of the aspects of
That's
it.
not always true. Sometimes it's because
Not
he's actually
always
that
true.
good most of the time. And then sometimes you come up against an opponent that you're not better than. And that's what makes you reevaluate everything.
Correct.
Yeah, and Johnny is also flaming.
Yeah. Wait for it.
Yeah, I'm afraid that's where they'll go.
Wait for it. Yep.
Final thoughts, and we have a lot of super chats and questions here on this. I again with everything, I because I know what BS the media is. They manufacture. We used to call it in the 90s doing Film Threat magazine. When there was no news, you make news. You create news out of something that isn't news. So you come up with an angle, and that is a story that came from your take on it, whatever. But this could all be nothing when the movie really comes out. I'm cautiously optimistic, but I kind of judge the film on the film, not this story in Entertainment Weekly. Final thoughts, everyone. Chime in.
Yeah, I mean, what would the press be saying if she had gave a trad wife answer?
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
it would,
Yes.
this whole discourse would be completely different.